Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. That's a meeting of the Committee of the Whole for Monday, June 22nd. Joel, would you be so kind
Certainly,
as
Mr.
to
Mayor.
sing our national anthem to open the meeting?
Oh, Canada, our own and native land, true patriot love in all thy sons command. Car de brace por se le peye, irse por se la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée de plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you, Joel, very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
When you it's appropriate to ask and invite anybody on council they want to make additional comments after.
It's up to you.
Well, after that, give me the opportunity.
You go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good evening, everyone.
I like morning better.
It's been a long day. Madam Clerk, I understand there are one addendum item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's correct. There's the addition of item 15 this evening, a memorandum from the Director of Community and Corporate Services concerning frozen water services.
Thank you. I entertain confirmation of our agenda, including the addendum item. Councillor Bodner, Councillor Doucette. Any comments or discussion? All those in favor? Carried. And are there any disclosures of interest this evening? Councillor Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to declare an indirect pecuniary interest in item number 9, which deals with the Royal Canadian Legion's request, as I'm a member of Branch 56.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So noted. Any other disclosures of interest? Move on to determination of committee items not requiring separate discussion. Councillor Doucette.
Item number 1, sir.
Thank you. Anything else? Councillor Bodner.
Item 5, Mr. Mayor, and item 9 for Councillor Butters' conflict.
Item 5 and
9.
item 9?
Yeah.
To my right, Councillor Kenny.
Item 15, the addendum item.
Thank you, Councillor Kenny. Are there any other items? There being none, I'd request a motion to approve the committee items not requiring separate discussion. Councillor Desmarais, moved by. Councillor Main, seconded. Any comments or discussion? Call for the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. I have a presentation tonight. We as a council and as a city would like to recognize Bob Heil, our Chief Administrative Officer, on his retirement from the city of Port Colborne. Mr. Heil, would you like to join me at the podium? And wish to comment as follows. We wish to thank Bob for his guidance and counsel to the city of Port Colborne over the last 8 years, but that's in fact the culmination of over 42 years of municipal service, a record that few will match. Bob's vast knowledge and experience of municipal operations will be difficult to duplicate. As I've said before, he is literally a walking, talking, breathing municipal resource book. Bob is a forward thinker who has pushed and prodded and dragged the city into our world of new, exciting, and efficient technology. His values and guiding principles are an example for all, but most especially for members of our municipal administration. Bob didn't hesitate to take a tough, principled stand when required, always keeping in mind the best interests of the municipality. He was always prepared to give members of council, new and old, sound advice. One thing I admire about him most was he had an open door policy, and council put this to great advantage. He was always prepared to offer his opinion whether you asked for it or not, and he had opinions on many subjects. He could be gruff and tough, but masked behind this exterior was a twinkle of the eye and an interior smile, if not a chuckle. He never hesitated to support his staff and was loyal to them. We may not be sure of what the future holds for Bob Heil, but we are assured that it will be full and meaningful. Bob, you'll be missed, especially by myself. Best wishes to you for all of us here at 66 Charlotte.
Thank you.
Thank you for this year. And on this occasion, I'd like to present to Robert Heil in recognition of 8 years of dedicated and outstanding service to the city of Port Colborne on behalf of City Council and colleagues and all the citizens of the city of Port Colborne. Your contribution, your efforts have provided to our community will be everlasting. Signed by myself as your mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And this, I bet you can't believe what it is or understand what it is, but I'd like you to perhaps open it, and hopefully you will appreciate a little gift in recognition of your service to our community.
It's not my bulletin board, is it? Oh, it is.
There we are.
This is the picture. This is the picture that I coveted that hung in the mayor's office. This was my community.
It's a picture of our harbor and the community.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, I would invite any member of council, if they wish to make a comment to Bob, please feel free to speak up now or forever hold your peace.
Your worship, they have to be nice comments.
Okay. I won't qualify at that. Comments? Councilor Kenny.
Oh, I forgot when I'm supposed to stand, but I'm going to stand because this is an official business, I guess. I want to just offer my thanks to Bob as well for his guidance, and many times we butted heads on issues, but he always listened to what you had to say and respected how you felt and tried to push you a little bit his way. But I honestly can say that you were a great mentor and a friend, and I wish you well.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else? Councilor May.
I don't want to be accused of speeding up your resignation and your retirement, Bob, but that's the way it looks to a lot of people. But I really respect you, and I wish you all the best in your endeavors in the future. And keep up that acting, because you do a pretty damn good job of it.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Councilor Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to offer you my best wishes for a healthy, happy retirement. I think you're going to have so much fun, you won't know hardly what to do with yourself. That's what I think is going to happen. You are going to enjoy the hell out of it, and well, you should. And I want to thank you for your service to this city. I've learned lots of things from you. Some of them were harder lessons than others, but all were appreciated. So you just go out and have a wonderful, wonderful retirement.
Councillor Doucette.
Thank you very much. Bob, I'm going to miss our little Friday morning talks that we used to have. When you used to come in, and I used to come in here after market, and you used to listen to me, and sometimes it was ranting and raving because I was upset about something. But you were always prepared to listen and always prepared to offer suggestions, and most of the time, if not all the time, usually resolved my issue. And I appreciated that, because for someone to sit there and listen sometimes can be very difficult. And I know I've done it. I've had to do it in other situations. You were always patient and you were always good at it. And I'll tell you, in retirement, if you do the same thing, especially with your grandchildren, because I've noticed there's been a couple of weddings there. Okay, I'm sure grandchildren will come eventually if there are none already, and you will definitely be missed here, but with the grandchildren, they will enjoy you even more because of that. Thank you very much for everything that you've done.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Danch.
So I guess I'm door number 6 in the thank you department here, and I truly do appreciate all you've done for me, Bob. You've been a bit of a guider for sure, and you know, I came up here pretty green, and it is a wonderful workplace that you have, and you consider it a family, and you are so correct, because it is a family, and you will be missed. I'm sure we'll get a new email address for you, so you can give us those specific direction notes and whatnot for telling us what we're doing right and doing wrong, and enjoy dancing with you, having a couple beers at the Bocce Club, and all the best to you, my friend.
Anyone else? Councillor Desmarais.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bob, again, as I've said in my messages to you, I truly appreciate all the guidance that you've given me personally over the last few years. And I've got to say, you've made the road so much easier for me as a new councillor, and I'm sure for others. And you will be missed. But I know you've earned this, and I just wish you all the happiness and all the health that you can possibly have. Just go and enjoy.
Councillor Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bob, thank you very much for all the guidance and help you've given, and certainly we worked on a couple little projects together, and some are still a work in progress, but thank you for the help on that. And as you retire and you've got all that knowledge, there's a couple of communities in the area that probably could use your assistance, so you might think of signing up and helping them out. But anyways, thanks for what you did for Port Colborne and certainly for this council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bodner. Well, Bob, all positive.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, you're ahead, buddy.
Thank you. I'll let you return to your seat, and I have another president. Oh, Jesus, Bob. Yes, you have a last word.
I wonderful. I appreciate the last word. I don't very often get it.
You won't anymore.
Mayor Maloney, members of council, former Mayor Badaway, you know, being a city manager is not easy, but it's so rewarding. In 1973, Chairman Bedford Ball of the Ontario Municipal Board, he was the first CAO in Ontario, in Aurelia. 1973, he said to me, "Are you going to make this your career?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "You know, here's one thing you have to remember. When a taxpayer or a citizen comes in with a problem, you might see that problem or that issue every hour. So it gets routine. But to that taxpayer, it might be the most important thing in their life. And I have to treat it that way every time."
and I hope I have. Port Colborne is a very unique city. It's full of family. It's full of, you know, there was a story. It's the only place where if you fall down, somebody will stop and pick you up. It's the city. It's a great place, and I want to just say thank you to this council, to some excellent professional staff, and to the former councils and mayor for the opportunity, and it was an opportunity. And I'm so happy I'm retiring from here and not from Haldimand or Lincoln or any other municipalities. This is home. So I really do appreciate the support, the good comments, and I'm going to stick around for a while, and I'll still get the last word. Thank you very much. I very much appreciate that.
Thank you, Bob. Actually, I'm going to disappoint you. Since we have a number of former councillors in the audience, I would like to extend to them an opportunity to come forward and give a few comments on our retiring CAO. Sorry to put you on the spot, but you took the time to come here, and that's certainly to be appreciated by...
Turn the timer on.
Former Mayor Vance Badaway.
Well, thanks, John, and I guess I'm speaking on behalf of my other two former colleagues, Bill Steele and Gary Bruno, but it is a pleasure to be here today to see Bob off after 8 great years here in the city of Port Colborne. You've given us a lot, Bob, not only as a person, as a friend, as a member of Port Colborne family, but also, as many councillors stated, as a leader of our administration, taking forward what council has in the past and still continues to put forward as strategy. And of course, with the new mayor and council in place, I'm sure you continue to do that. But as well as you mentioned, to really take as a point of priority, point of respect, the folks of the city of Port Colborne, and of course their needs and wishes, whether it be big or small. You did that successfully, you had a great year, and you responded accordingly. And for that, not only as a former mayor, but more importantly, as a resident of the city of Port Colborne, I thank you for that, and all the best wishes in your retirement.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
That was the final word.
Oh, good. No, it's good. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
This will hang proudly in my home.
At this time, we have another presentation. I'd ask Fire Chief Cartwright to come forward to receive this and be joined by Richard Crabb from the Fire Marshal's Public Fire Safety Council.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council, staff, and the viewing audience this evening. I'm quite proud to be here this evening to receive financial support from Enbridge and the Fire Marshal's Public Safety Council for Project Assist. They're assisting us with a donation tonight of $5,000 towards our training program. Enbridge over the years has been very supportive of all the fire services in the province, but ourselves especially, we've been able to we got 250 carbon monoxide smoke alarms off them a couple of years ago through another program. We were able to distribute them throughout the community, and they come to all of our open houses and so on to assist us with preparing food as well as this latest. So I'm going to introduce Richard to say a few words. He's here this evening representing the Fire Marshal's Public Safety Council as well as Enbridge, and he's also a training officer with the City of Oakville Fire Department. Richard?
Thank you, Chief. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Mayor, councillors, Fire Chief, and friends. I'm delighted to be here today on behalf of the Fire Marshal's Public Fire Safety Council with Enbridge Gas Distribution and the Port Colborne Fire and Emergency Services for Project Assist. The role of the council is to develop partnerships between members of the fire safety community and the general public, and Project Assist is a strong example of how these partnerships work. In May, Enbridge teamed up with the council and provided it with $100,000 in funds for Project Assist. The Port Colborne Fire and Emergency Services is one of 20 competent volunteer fire departments in Ontario who will be taking part in this unique program. Now in its fourth year, Enbridge has contributed $400,000 to the project assist. The objective of this project is to provide funds to these fire departments to supplement existing training in firefighter techniques in the areas where Enbridge operates. Regular training is an important part of being prepared for any hazard situation, and Project Assist positively contributes to overall firefighter health and safety by improving access to training materials. I want to thank Enbridge Gas Distribution for its long-term support and commitment to this important campaign. I'd also like to congratulate His Worship Mayor John Maloney and Fire Chief Tom Cartwright and the Port Colborne Fire and Emergency Services on being chosen to take part in this beneficial program. Thank you for inviting me here today and for demonstrating your commitment to making this province a safer place to live. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Officer Krabby. It's a pleasure for us to receive this check, but certainly you can never have enough training. This funds will be well spent, and certainly this community will benefit, and our firefighters will benefit from it as well. Thank you very much to Enbridge and to yourself for personally coming here and to present it. Thank you again. Okay, we have a delegation regarding matters not on the agenda. It's Mr. Derek Ritzel, Artistic Director of Showboat Festival Theatre and Lighthouse Festival Theatre, will provide an update regarding Showboat Festival's playbill. Welcome.
Well, thank you very much. What am I clicking? The red button? Oh, that's like the White House. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me here, councillors. Mayor Maloney, thank you for listening to my drone on. I'm here just to give a quick update. I don't have a big fancy presentation with bells and whistles, but I do have some things to share. 2.5 years ago, we came here with a mission to save Showboat Festival Theatre. And I would just like to give you a brief update as to where that is. I've been sharing sort of the statistics with the audiences that have been coming through over the past week, but I'll share those with you now. When we started, it was dire. It was in a situation where we weren't sure what was going to happen, but we see Port Colborne as a land of opportunity right now, especially in the world of theatre. The people that we spoke with when we came out here to look into the idea of creating a partnership were extremely passionate, and it had all the earmarks of everything that we look for when we were trying to build a theatre. Now, a little insight, what I've been sharing this week is what I look for, what the administrators at a theatre look for is a 3% increase in our subscriptions from year to year. That's important to us. A 10% increase is you build a statue in front of the theatre. That's what I've been sharing. This year, Showboat is experiencing a 45% increase in subscriptions. And the 6 out of the 7 shows that we just performed of our first show of the season were close to sellouts, maybe 3 or 4 seats left. The final show, we had to turn people away, and we were putting them up into the balconies that we actually don't have the ability to sell. And we had a 5-year plan, and we were right in track for that 5-year plan. And that 5-year plan is to extend Showboat's season from a 4-week to an 8-week season, thereby giving us the potential of bringing in 12,000 people per summer to come and see a show and come to the restaurants, see the downtown, maybe Canal Days. We cross-promote with that. We also started cross-promoting with your show just recently, Mr. Heil. So we are right on track, and we're very pleased with that. And we have 3 more shows this season, and I'm proud to announce today that on opening night of this year for Showboat Festival Theatre, we had already made budget. We are now into the black with 3 shows remaining. So things are going very, very well. I'm not here to ask for money for Showboat. We're doing it all on our own, and we know what the constraints are from council. We get it. But I will encourage you this. If you ever see a line in the budget that says extra money, that doesn't happen here? No? But in all seriousness, there will be a time, Harry's instilled a good program with a capital surcharge on every ticket. And that's a very smart way to develop a bankroll to upgrade equipment. But there will be a time when Harry will come to you and ask you to help with upgrading the equipment. Because I can share with you that the equipment in the Roselawn Center is antiquated. It is old. Some of it is 30 years old. You have what's called 1K lighting in your theater. And each light is drawing an enormous amount of power. Whereas a theater that has upgraded their system, they have an entire grid of 100 lights that use 1/2 of one of your lights through LEDs. There is an enormous amount of power being sucked every time that a presentation goes on at the Roselawn Center. The lighting board is older than me, so much so that we have put that lighting board aside and we have brought one from Lighthouse, and currently Roselawn is borrowing a more upgraded lighting board. So it is my encouragement, not so that you bring money to Showboat, but to yourselves in the Roselawn Center. And Harry and I have been talking, and we'll get more in depth on what that upgrading wants to look like so that this space can become much, much more efficient, just in electricity bills wise, but also for the people, the guests that you have come to present in those spaces. So that's the one thing that I would encourage. We're doing our part. Hopefully in the next 2 years, we'll get that up to about 12,000 people coming through here, generating a lot more money for the community. And if you ever have the wherewithal, or Harry comes to you at a time when he has bankrolled some money with that capital surcharge and needs a little more help to get it over the hump, I would hope that you would give that some due consideration for your own space. We are very pleased with the way things are going. We're very proud of what we're building. It's nice to come to council now and see friendly faces. Although you're winning money, you're going to be friendly, yeah, I know. Yes, that was a good haul that night, actually. Congratulations, by the way. But it's nice that some of you are coming out to the theater and supporting it, because we have zero intention of stopping. We have every intention of making it as big as we possibly can. So I thank you for that support. I thank you for coming to the shows. I thank you for giving some consideration to Harry's request, which may come years from now. It'll take time, but please do give it some due consideration. And we thank you for welcoming us, and we hope we see you at the next show, which is Stag and Doe. It's playing in Lighthouse right now, and it's selling out like crazy. We had a marriage proposal on the stage because of the show. It's quite endearing, and we hope to see you there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Derek. Is there any questions from any member of council to Derek? There being none, I just have one question.
Sure.
Getting back to perhaps a future ask. Have you ever considered, or do you have, an economic impact study that the theater has for Port Colborne?
No, we don't at this time, but it is in the works. But for us, we have to get a hold on what our numbers are going to be and our projections. That's what the last two years were. And this year, if we get a 3-year plan, a 3-year sort of rhythm as to what's happening with our increase, then we're able to build a more prospective plan that has more of a pragmatic view at it rather than a pipe dream view at it. So we're getting that data now, but we do not have that perspective as of yet. But it is in the works.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you very much for attending.
I appreciate that. Now you'll have to excuse me. I'm on my way to Collingwood to put one of our shows in there. So if you don't mind. Well, it's a beautiful town. The Gaiety Theater? Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. But thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the mayor's report. I attended the opening night at Showboat and had a very good time. I look forward to the next one, Stag and Doe. It's an interesting, intriguing title. Also, on your behalf, I presented the Mayor's Cup at the 444 fishing tournament They had they cut the entrance at 100, and I believe they may have made it right to the top because they were only 2 away when I spoke with the organizers. It was a great tournament. I think everyone enjoyed themselves. The weather, they had a little bit of everything except snow. And it got a little choppy, certainly in the latter part of the Sunday afternoon, but everyone made it home safe and sound. And these fish were literally mammoth. They were huge. I'm not sure I want to swim in Lake Erie after seeing some of these guys. Anyway, certainly the Port Colborne District Conservation Club can use new members, new assistants, like every other organization and service club in the community. Their members are getting older, and sometimes they a little creakier in the limbs and the knees and etc. So I would encourage all of council and all of our staff to consider assisting them with this endeavor, because it's a huge impact on our community, and one that we want to continue with. Okay, at this time I move on to our councilors' items of new business. Any item, Mr. Doucette would be first, then Mr. Danch.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. To you, to Mr. Lee, roof on Valet. I started that and requested all kinds of information way back in, I believe it was November. I've been talking with Mike, who has filled me in. I want to know where we're at with repairs to it. Mike was telling me that there are certain things that were discovered, like some of the pipes weren't sealed up properly and they were leaking and things of that nature, but there's got to be more to it than that. Where are we in repairing that roof and making sure that when we get to the next rainy season, which is the fall, we don't have to have all these pails all over the place?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Doucette. It's my understanding in talking with staff that the final report from the consultant is coming forward with recommendations. They've found some issues, as you had indicated, plus some others. That being said, they're coming up with a fix on some of those issues, and we hope to have that before you with costs and everything associated to that in the near future.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, are there any timelines? Are we looking at it being done by September? Are we looking, do we have any idea? Or
through you, Mr. Mayor, my understanding is that we want this done before the end of summer. I'd have to confirm those dates, though, because I haven't had a chance to talk with staff specifically on deliveries. So,
thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. One more issue.
Yes, Mr.
I've talked about this in the past about valet. One of the issues with valet is that there appears to be some lack of accommodation for certain disabilities. And an example of that was if you came in through the back door and you had a visual impairment, you would have great difficulty in navigating to get up to the main area, because it has 3 sort of landings on the way up. Someone with visual impairment can't adjust to that, and there may be an accident. And I've talked about this at least 3 times, if not 4 times in the last session. I was just wondering where we were with that. Last time I heard some kind of yellow tape or something was going to be put down to at least give them a heads up that something is happening here. That isn't happening. So I was just wondering where we were at with that. Since I'm hitting valet, I may as well hit it with everything.
Mr. Lee?
through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Doucette. It's my understanding that staff is aware of the issue. They are attempting at this point to address it. So as far as a solution is concerned, I don't know what that exactly is, but yes. And in talking with Harry, he had confirmed that staff was aware of that situation.
Councillor Doucette, there is an elevator that would avoid having to take any steps. If they have a comment on that one?
Yeah. I agree that the elevator is sort of a help to get to the second floor. I'm not talking about that at all. First of all, if you're disabled and if you park where you're supposed to park, to be able to get into the building, you've got to follow the whole length of the building to get into the building to get to the elevator. I'm talking about the back door where the bocce is, where a lot of disabled people like to park because they're right there by the door. And on the way in, if they have a visual impairment, on the way up to where the elevator is, you have 3 landings. You go up and then it levels off, and then you go up and then it levels off. For someone with any kind of impairment, someone with cerebral palsy, someone with Parkinson's, someone with visual impairment, has difficulty navigating those changes. And like I said, I've been talking about it for at least 3 years. And I just would like to have an indication somehow that they know that there is a change going on here, so that they don't accidentally figure that they're going up and what it is they've got a flat surface and then they're going to tumble forward. It hasn't happened yet, and I know it hasn't happened yet, at least I haven't been told it has, but I'd like to find a way to help those people out, because it's supposed to be accessible to everyone, and if you're coming in through the back door, you have to navigate that hall section before you can get to the elevator.
Thank you for that explanation, Councillor Doucette. Is there any other member of council who would wish to have a comment? Mr. Main?
Not so much on the bail center.
No, on any issue. And Mr. Maris, and then Councillor Kenny.
I have 2, and through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Hakeem. Could you update me, Mr. Hakeem, on the situation of the wakeboarders? I was asked at the 444 if the wakeboarders weren't coming back, whether that chunk of cement would be taken out next to the dock there.
Through your worship, to Councillor Main, the wakeboarders are coming back. In fact, as of today, we nailed them down to a date, which is on the 29th and 30th of this month, where they're going to be bringing back their equipment. They did have an accident, unfortunately, in the initial install this year, with the main arm that was being set up, and somehow it fell over and twisted, so we had to remove it from site, have it, I guess, re-engineered or fixed, and they can't bring it back until it is certified for safe use. So they're planning on bringing it back, email says the 29th, 30th of June. So they are coming back in full force.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
One more, go ahead.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Lee. I got an email from some people that live on Sugarloaf Street, and I know it's already zoned 40 kilometers, and I've approached our regional councillor about having the police monitor the traffic a little bit closer. And they're getting to the point where they're desperate enough to trade Sugarloaf Street for Adelaide Street, just so they could slow it down. And if you know what I'm talking about, Adelaide Street has the built-in speed bumps for the whole length of the street. And they were wondering if any thought could be given to slow that traffic down by putting a 4-way stop at the end of where Elm meets Sugarloaf. And that would give the chance for the car to stop and go ahead, and that when they get to that one section, the ones that are doing the most complaining is between Elm and King, that these vehicles wouldn't be able to get up to 40 miles or 40 kilometers an hour, and be a lot better for the kids and the people in the neighborhood.
Mr. Lee?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Main, we will push that through to staff and have them do some investigation in that, look at some traffic counts, see what the situation is. You're correct that it is 40 kilometers per hour presently. Enforcement right now is our only way, but we can have another serious look at that and just see where we can go from there.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
That's it, Mr. Main. Councillor Desmarais?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll stood up. Further to the Valley Center concerns that Councillor Doucette had, there's also an issue of handrails for long expanses where people have to walk and they may have stability issues when they're walking. Those handrails need to be put in, and I know that we've spoken about this before. I think, Harry, I've spoken to you about them. Chris, I don't know if you're aware of them or not, but there are several accessibility issues in the building, and we have heard over the last 2 years that staff is aware of them, but we've heard this for 2 years. What I'd like to do is have a date whereby we can expect that those issues would start being addressed. That means actually physically being addressed.
Mr. Lee or Mr. Hakeem?
Actually, I think there's some elements of the accessibility factors of the facility that we're still learning. In fact, I just had an experience with one that was very unique and certainly was accommodating to meet her needs immediately, but not necessarily at the Valley Center because of some limitations, but I addressed her needs. The railing along that wall, I think, the long transition that Councillor Doucette was talking about, where the elevation does change subtly. It has caused some concern with some people with the two-wheeled walker, where they have to lift it over that little rise, if you notice it. So those are things that, yes, we've been talking about in all due respect, and we'll have to act on it more vehemently to get it done. But the handrail aspect, I think, was identified with the Accessibility Advisory Committee as well. So there may be something there that we can certainly pursue with staff.
Okay, I do understand that you're aware of them, but that's what we're hearing again. What I need, though, is an actual date that we're going to see action taken, because we keep talking about this. This is 2 years now. We keep talking about this, and these are accessibility issues. So what the potential to harm people is there. So I would like to see this resolved and quickly.
Thank you, Councillor Demery. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee, where's my advanced green line? We talked about that 2 weeks ago. You told me you were going to talk to the region, and 2 weeks is like 2 months too long for me. You know how much patience I have with stupid things like that. It's a lane. It's up. It has a stupid green plastic thing over top of it. When is it going to actually work? That's all I want to know. On a date.
Mr. Lee.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Kenny, that would be a question I would like the answer to as well. We are not getting much headway in that regard, but I will definitely rattle that cage one more time. That being said, the region right now is looking at a complete retrofit of that system, so because of the potential of the entranceway for the new Public Works facility. So that will involve a whole new intersection design for that from the region. So, but the flashing light is our first step.
Yes, and I just like rattle that really hard because they told me last year it was going to be working. Last year, and now we're like it's up there. How much does it take to get it to work? So if you could rattle that cage, maybe with the club, that would be great. That would be great. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else? Councillor Danch.
I guess I'll start with Mr. Lee if I could. Chris, I had asked about a sign there on Main Street. The post is missing. It's right near Avondale. It's been cleaned off at the sidewalk level. It's been gone for 3-4 weeks now. And I noticed there's also another one missing on in front of Mark Gilbo's. It's the same thing. It's been cleaned off right at ground level. A little bit of the barb sticking out. Somebody steps on it. We'll have a concern there, I'm sure. So if you could look into those couple for me.
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Danch, I've actually had staff members escort the regional staff to that exact location and point it out to them. So short of us replacing it ourselves, we are doing everything we can.
Sounds like the same bat that needs to rattle the cage.
I think I may have to buy 2 bats.
I'm in the hardwood business, so. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Hakeem, had my son-in-law in town on the weekend there, and he's not from the area, and he certainly loves the water and the boats and whatnot, so we spent a little time down at the public launch watching people not know how to put their boat on a trailer. It was rather amusing, but noticed that the outdoor washrooms down there, the grass is about 2 feet high around those 2 outside facilities there. I just wonder if maybe someone could get off a tractor and get a weed whacker and knock down some of that high grass. I mean, it would be a little bit nicer. The mosquitoes have been getting everybody, and I'm sure they're having a good time there as well. So if someone could get over there, Harry, I'd appreciate it.
Through your worship to Councillor Dance, we actually acted on that this afternoon. We also have a contract service, so we're trying to figure out if that's part of the actual contract service. So I've asked Parks to give me an idea as to what it is that they're actually cutting down there. We really don't know, but in fairness, we acted on it, first of all, took care of it today, this afternoon, and secondly, we'll get the contract service to find out exactly what it is that they're supposed to do at the Marina grounds.
This is good. Everyone is Councilor do that?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. One more. About 3 years ago, we discussed signage at the on Main Street for the bridge. On the east side, if a truck or a long van happens to stop, they block off Chippewa Road. I've had citizens from that area constantly call me. I had one man today, I forgot the pictures. One man on Sunday came at 10:30 in the morning, gave me a whole bunch of pictures of how they block that road, and they're not supposed to. There are signs that indicate, please do not block the road. But the signs are tucked away way off, and a lot of people, and the reason I know this is because this man went one day and started asking the people that were blocking, did you see the sign? And they said, what sign? Now, whether they saw it or not, maybe they're just acting, I don't know. Bottom line is, they're not seeing the sign, they're blocking the road, and people, citizens in that area that are coming down Chippewa Road to Main Street can't get out of there. So now they've got to turn around and go through Dolphin and hopefully get out that way. Well, I was always told that it was against the law to block a roadway, especially if you're stopping for a bridge and they're not going down to the other lift bridge. They're staying there and they're waiting for the lift bridge to go up. So that means that could be blocked for 20, 30, 40 minutes. What if we have an emergency? Somehow that has to be dealt with. And we started 3 or 4 years ago trying to deal with it. We thought we had it, and we're discovering that we don't have the ability, or somehow people don't understand they're not supposed to block that road. So I don't know who to address it to. I'm going to send it to Chris Lee because he's in engineering. It may also be a regional issue, Mr. Mayor, simply because Highway 3 is a regional road. I don't know. But we have to address the fact that that traffic is blocking that road, and it's creating a safety issue that we must address in some way, shape, or form. I don't know what the answer is. I've been at it for 3 years, but it's got to be done, and we have to do it soon. Yes, every season is the same thing. I get citizens calling me saying, I can't get out of here. What's wrong with these people? I don't have an answer for them anymore. I really don't. But we need to find an answer to it. If that means putting a police officer there and nailing everyone that does it, let's do it. But let's find an answer to it, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Doucette. You're absolutely correct in the statement that it is a regional intersection. That being said, that is our main contact point, and also the enforcement side of it, as you had stated, is also a regional issue. So those are two things that we'll have to bring to their attention, that it's continuing.
Please, let's do that.
Another club.
Mr. Lee, perhaps you could provide me with a memo on these 3 regional issues, and Mr. Barrick and I will approach the appropriate director, see whether we can get some action from our end of it.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that can be done quite simply.
Good. Send it to me in carbon copy, Mr. Barrick, and we'll both address it. Thank you. Any other comments from anyone? There being none, I'd ask perhaps our CAO, Heil, to provide some additional background or information on communications between members of council and perhaps the public. Perfect.
Thank you, Your Worship. One of the things. I'm going to start off by saying thank you for letting me sit at the last council meeting, so I don't have to stand. The technology that we talk about is a great tool, and I really am very pleased with the position that all members of council and staff have taken to move ahead. You know, we've saved thousands and thousands of dollars in paper. A couple of things that have been coming to light at the municipalities all over Ontario are the changes in legislation in respect of the rules and responsibilities and the opportunities for the ombudsman to review what's going on confidentially in municipalities. A couple of things that happen. It used to be where you had, you didn't have this electronic opportunity of communications. You would talk to each other, members of council would talk on telephone, which was, you know, one-on-one communication. What we've got now with iPad is a great opportunity for members of council to collect information, to take photos, to share photos, to have instant communications. One of the things, because of the new legislation coming, we really want to suggest to members of council that as much as you can use your iPads, you have to be cautious about speaking or providing input or comment. And it's so easy. I know it myself. When somebody sends out a note or something, it's easy to comment. And I just want to caution members of council that anything like that happens, you need to be very careful about providing input or opinion without having it done at a duly constituted council meeting. Now, the clerk and I spoke today about opportunities. With the new legislation, it might be worthwhile to provide members of council with a couple of things. One, perhaps a brief memo on the new legislation in respect of open and transparent communications, as well as perhaps maybe a policy statement that council may want to consider in respect of communications that it has electronically. Anything electronically is on the record. It is subpoenable, which means that anything that you say on the record to any member of council comes into our system here in City Hall, and a copy is kept. If anything was ever callable, the clerk would have to bring forward that information and provide it. And that goes back to all that discussion that we had back a number of months ago at council orientation. It's all good. And you know, and I'm going to commend council for being so diligent on these things. It is excellent. All I want to do is suggest to you that perhaps the clerk could bring forward, and I would ask for that kind of direction, Your Worship, if it's possible, to provide a brief synopsis of the new legislation and perhaps a policy statement that you might want to consider in respect of your procedures or in your overall policy document in respect of open, honest, transparent communications. It's all very positive, and I think it's an evolution in the necessity to ensure that any council business is done in the public realm as much as possible. And that's really what I'm suggesting, Your Worship, at this point.
Thank you, CEO Heil. Any comments, questions on CEO Heil's? Yes, Councilor Doucette and Councilor Bodnar.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. CEO Heil, are you suggesting then that we give direction to staff, being the clerk in this case, that she return this, or can we just leave it in your hands to do it? Or
Your Worship, I would provide direction. I would pursue that, meet with the new CAO, who's way back there.
Yeah.
To work with the clerk and staff to see what kind of a reasonable policy could come forward that the taxpayers can know and understand about the communications of members of council through electronic media. And we'll proceed with that. If there's no objection from members of council, I will provide direction to the clerk to do that, followed up by the new CAO.
I would suggest that we do that ASAP.
Thank you, Mr. Doucette. Mr. Bodnar.
I'll second that, and that's what I was going to suggest. So, I'm done.
I'm not sure whether we need a motion on it, but just staff direction. Mr. Main?
I agree with coming up with a policy, but what I don't like, and I'll be honest, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm anal about it, but when you can share information from ward to ward with different problems, with different counselors from each ward, that everybody's on the same page, I don't understand why somebody says it's a meeting. It's sharing of information. To me, a meeting is when you have a quorum, number one, and you vote on something, and in our respect, it's counselors or it's taxpayers' money. But if we're just sharing information between what's happening in Ward 3, what's happening in Ward 4, and what's happening in Ward 1 and 2, and there's banter going back and forth. And I learned a new word last week, and it's postulation, and it's a good word. But I noticed from 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock, there was 6 postulations on my email. So I think, the people that are making these laws, I think it's about time they caught up to everybody else. Because if we have a problem and we have to come to council and we have to discuss it at council, okay, there's 2 weeks. Then that only gives staff 2 more weeks to work on the problem. So there's 4 weeks. Then it has to come back to council. Our taxpayers, in my opinion, expect things to get done quickly. And what better service is it than the electronic media? And all that other stuff to me is a hindrance, and it's a ball and chain around your leg. Enough said. Thank you.
Counselor, I don't think there's anyone around this dais that would disagree with you. It's just a question. We have to live within the legislation, and hopefully there will be some guidance to not get around it, but to address the concerns that you have stipulated here tonight. Thank you for your comments. Madam Clerk, we have received some direction from council with respect to this issue.
That was postulation.
We'll look forward to a report from you in due course. Thank you. Moving on now, we have the minutes of the 15th meeting, regular of Committee of the Whole, on June 8th, 2015. I'd entertain a motion to accept those as circulated. Moved by Councillor Kenny, seconded by Councillor Demery. Any comments or questions? There being none, call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Now we'll move on to consideration of those items requiring separate discussion. First one is item number 1, Councillor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Okay. Department of Community and Corporate Services Clerks Division Report number 2015-113. Subject public meeting amendments to the procedures governing council and committee meetings. Public meeting will be a presentation of the Department of Community and Corporate Services Clerks Division Report number 2015. Subject public meeting amendments to the governing council and committee meetings. Comments or questions to council, oral presentation and or questions to the public, adjourn, and then adjournment of the meeting. That the bylaw bring effect to the city's new procedural bylaw to govern the proceedings of council and committee meetings as outlined in Community and Corporate Services Clerks Division Report 2013-113 be presented for approval.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Councillor Kenny? Any questions or comments? Yes, Councillor Doucette.
Just one, sir, to the clerk. I've had a couple of calls about this. Some people read it, and one of the concerns they had was that, does that mean that when we have a public meeting per se, a public meeting, does that mean that they have to register by noon strictly for the public meeting? And I'm talking about the public meeting that we have, especially with the planning. Do we need to, do those people that want to talk at that public meeting, do they need to register by 12 o'clock? In the past, that hasn't been the procedure that we followed. It's whoever shows up and you invite them to come up and so on, and they don't have to. If this includes that, then I don't like it. People that come to a public meeting want to be able to speak if what they hear gets them going. And that's what the idea about a public meeting is. Now, a committee meeting and a council meeting, I have no objections to that. Some of these changes are positive. Some of these changes will help a lot of people, and I agree with them. Some of them are things we've been doing that are not even part of the procedural bylaw, are now going to become part of the procedural bylaw, and that's perfect. The only section is the public meeting section. Does it affect the public meeting section?
That's great.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, it does not. That's the short answer to your question.
Okay,
through you, Mr. Mayor. The changes to the rules regarding delegations is actually, at the current time, delegations are required to register by 10 a.m. on the Thursday prior to the meeting, which means that they're asked to register as a delegation before ever seeing a copy of the agenda. The intention of this change is to allow members of the public the opportunity to register until 12 noon on the day of the meeting so that they have the opportunity to see what matters are before council for consideration. So public meetings would not be included in that. Our standard procedure for opening the floor to hear representations from the public would continue.
Any other questions or comments? There being none. Oh, Councillor Bodnar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the clerk, I wonder, we used to have copies of the procedural bylaw in our drawers. I don't have one, but I don't know if everybody does, but could that happen again now that if there's any updates? Yeah?
Yes.
Has it got my name on it, Councillor Butters? No? Oh, okay. Okay. Just wondered.
Ms. Gregg, could you address Mr. Bonner's concerns?
Yes, thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, I was going to mention that as well. If council chooses to approve the procedural bylaw tonight, one of the first things the clerk's office will be doing is making copies for members of council and for staff.
Good. Any other comments or questions? There being none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Would this be an appropriate time to actually conduct the public meeting, Madam Clerk? And I'd ask you to proceed with that then.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In accordance with the city's notice bylaw, we're holding a public meeting tonight with the intention of hearing public input concerning the new procedural bylaw. I'll provide a very brief overview of some of the more substantive changes, and then the mayor can then open the floor to hear any input from the public. So to begin, as I mentioned a moment ago, there's going to be some changes to the city's procedural bylaw concerning the delegation process, allowing delegates to register until noon on the day of the meeting concerning an item that's listed on the agenda. For those items that are not listed on the agenda, there'll be need to register with the clerk's office by 10 o'clock a.m. on the Thursday prior to the meeting, which is our current deadline. And this is so that the clerk's office can get their correspondence on the agenda, so that if any other member of the public is interested to speak to that matter, they have the opportunity to see that it's also on the agenda. In addition, the provisions respecting closed session meetings have been revised to more clearly articulate the content of the motion to move into closed session. And in addition, provisions have been added so that upon reconvening an open session, the mayor will call for a motion to either resolve the matter publicly or to accept staff direction and indicate that staff direction was provided in closed session in accordance with the Municipal Act. Similarly, the bylaw also provides for the recording of open and closed session meetings of council. In addition, the new bylaw will now require that bylaws enacted by council only require one reading, and that's subject to any statute or regulation that requires otherwise. And also, the provisions respecting a motion for reconsideration have been revised to more clearly outline what we've been practicing recently, but specifically to include that a notice of motion regarding reconsideration, when brought up, will be brought forward to the next council meeting. And that concludes my overview of the changes to the procedural bylaw, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Gregg. Any questions or comments of members of council to Ms. Gregg? There being none, are there any questions or comments from any members of the public here in the chamber this evening? There being none, then I'd call for a motion to adjourn this public meeting. Councilor Doucette, Councilor Danch. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Next item, Councilor Bodner, is item number 5.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Department of Engineering and Operations Engineering Division Report number 2015-107. Subject contract number 2015-14 annual ditch cleaning for 2015 and 2016. That the Council of the City of Port Colborne award tender 2015-14 annual ditch cleaning to Anthony's Excavating Central Incorporated of Wellandport, Ontario, for the total tender price of $226,955 plus applicable taxes for 2015 and extend into 2016 pending 2016 budget approval. Staff is to utilize the bid items as listed within the award tender document in such a manner as to complete all works, all the while keeping within the annual budget allocation by council. That the contract bylaw whereby the city enters into a contract agreement with the contractor be prepared, all pending annual budget approvals for each of these years. That funding for tender 2015-14 be financed under GL account 0-500-73430-3328, all as approved annually in 2015 and 2016 by council.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Councilor Butters? Any comments or discussion, questions? Yes, Mr. Councilor Bodner.
Mr. Mayor, through you to, I guess, Chris, I understand that we get the money and we got a wish list for ditches that need to be done. Have staff finalized what ditches will be done? And if they have, can that be listed on the city's website so that people in the affected areas will know?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Bodner. Yes, actually, staff is finalizing that list now that we know what the unit rates are and the quantities that we have. That being said, there'll be some adjustments that are currently happening in that priority list to fit within the budget. Once that is completed, then we will be sending an email off to all the councilors concerned, and we can post that on the website.
Any other questions or comments? Councilor Main?
Just a quick question, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Lee. If the contract's been recommended for the $226,000, is this, say you do 5 kilometers for that, and then you have to choose where these kilometers are? Is that how you come up with, because I can't see putting the cart before the horse. They already know how many kilometers they're going to be doing?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councilor Main. Essentially, that is correct. The issue is that you may have a stretch where it may be 5 kilometers, but does that 5 kilometers have 4 driveway entrances with culverts? What size are they? Or does it have 55? That being said, those affect the prices, and so how many kilometers you can or cannot do. So that's the adjustment that staff is doing right now.
Any other comments or questions? There being none, I call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on to item number 9, Councilor Bodner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is for Councilor Butters' conflict. Royal Canadian Legion Branch 56 request the Royal Canadian Legion request for temporary extension of a patio license for Canal Days. That the Council of the Corporation of the City of Port Colborne does not object to the application for a temporary license extension to an existing license held by the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 56, located at 67 Clarence Street, Port Colborne, for Canal Days events starting Friday, July 31st, 2015 until Monday, August 3rd, 2015, as outlined in the correspondence dated May 29th, 2015, and that the request for a noise bylaw exemption be referred to the Bylaw Enforcement Division for response.
Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Councilor Main? Any questions or comments? There being none, I call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Final item for consideration is item number 15. Councilor Kenny, that was your request.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Memorandum from the Director of Community and Corporate Services dated June 19th regarding water frozen services credit refund. That the memorandum from the Director of Community and Corporate Services dated June 19th regarding water frozen services credit refund be received for information purposes.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Bodnar.
He's the seconder, I want
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, this was probably, I would say, a bill I was not looking forward to. My water consumption went from 61 cubic meters during this frozen water time to 85 cubic meters because I let my water run. At Mr. Hansen's advice to people on COGECO, it was recorded that he advised people to prevent frozen water lines. You should keep your tap running slowly and you would not get frozen water services. You wouldn't. I did that. I paid the price of an extra $100 for my quarterly belly, which is fine. But I have people who have called me, and I know other councillors have received calls in regards to how would a person know, or a taxpayer know, if they let their water run, if it was going to be on the city side or on their side, on the taxpayer side. The report that we got tonight says that if a change is directed by council to either waive this policy or change the policy for the interim because of this current situation, then it would have to be brought forward by council. This winter we got a curveball thrown to us, Mr. Mayor. All of us know it. Many of our taxpayers were affected by it. I believe my note says 260. Well, I don't want to throw that curveball back at them. I believe that we owe it to the taxpayer to credit them back. It says on here customers who did not freeze but ran their water, that was one of them. Customers who have a high usage due to running their water, and the freeze was on the private homeowner side. There were 80 properties that were affected by that. And then they get a bill and says, sorry, that doesn't count because, you know, it was on your side and we don't go on your side. Well, I think that's a lot of malarkey myself. I certainly believe that, that we also had a couple of customers ask a general compensation for the inconvenience of having no water due to freezing. In this case, in these cases, they didn't have any usage, therefore there was no additional cost to the homeowner, but they were inconvenienced sometimes 2 and 3 weeks before we got to them. So they had no water. Yes, we provided them showers at the Vale, and I appreciate that, and some people were told, come to City Hall and get water, which is great for cooking purposes and such. But I really believe we have to relook at this credit refund and to take into consideration these individuals. I think it's only fair. I'd be most interested to hear what other councillors feel, but I believe that we need to take into consideration these individuals, both the ones who were on the private side who left the water running, those who got help from their neighbor, and their neighbor's water bill went up because the neighbor was giving them water by some means. That's listed. Those who didn't have any service because for 2 weeks we couldn't get to them, whether it was a private contractor or whether it was by our own staff. But I think they need to be compensated some way or credited to their water account. And I'd certainly like to hear from other councillors on how they feel on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kenny. Mr. Corr, would you like to hear all the concerns before I'm asking you to respond, or would you want to do them individually? Because I think there may be a number of interventions.
I'm thinking at this point individually.
Individually?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Would you like to respond to Councillor Kenny? We appreciate that Mr. Sinnes is not here this evening.
I know, sorry.
So you are in the hot seat, and it could be awkward. But please respond as you can.
I guess at this point, if I'm understanding correctly, the memo from the DCCS, he's basically outlining that right now our current policy is to not refund these people. We're just, at this point, our city staff is following that current policy. So at this point, if there is to be a change, that would have to be from the direction of council.
Mr. High?
Your Worship, currently the council's policy is pretty clear right now in response to refund. It doesn't provide credit for people who are running the water to prevent freezing on city or private side. It doesn't provide for reduction or proration of the cost of the capital or the hard service, for the pipe in the ground, so to speak, and the plant. It doesn't provide for that. If council, and I'm going to make a suggestion, we can bring back to you a full report. One, we've got an idea of the volumetric changes right now. We can look at what the averages were and bring back a report, and we don't know if all of them have been running water for the winter or whether or not they've been selling water someplace. It doesn't matter. The fact is we can look at the averages in respect of what's being pumped and used for the properties that we read right now and make a determination about whether or not something's weird and wonky from a gallonage perspective. Whether they ran water or not for frozen, for the benefit of the doubt, assuming that they all are, we can bring a report and give you an idea of what that cost is. We can also bring a report to you in respect of the total cost of capital charge. I did a real quick calculation. Right now, capital charge is probably, for 260 properties, an average of 20 days, it's probably about $10,000. That would go against and go added on to the rate for 2016. It's within the term of council. It's a deficit. It's illegal to run a deficit, but during the term of council you can fix that. So you can tax it or levy against next year. So everybody has to pay. The same thing with the credit that can be done. One thing that you don't have right now before you is a much more comprehensive set of rules or policies in respect of whether it's frozen on the city side or frozen on the private side, whether the water's running to prevent from freezing or what happens in sanitary sewer charges and capitals, those kinds of things. If I may, Your Worship, what we can do is bring back to you a full report on all of these circumstances and outline all the costs. Then it's a simple matter of saying, yes, we agree with this policy, we want to massage this one, or we agree with this one. And you will be able to, at that point, have a much more fruitful discussion on what you could or could not do, what you should or should not do, based on its impact to the citizens that are affected, because I honestly believe this will happen again. I honestly believe it will happen again. Council is already aware that there's a $650,000 or $700,000 cost to fix the 250 or the 200 or so. That it's 175. We have 175 frozen on city side. So the cost right now is around $650,000 or $700,000 to fix those. Council's already aware of that. If in fact there's another 50 or 100, you need to have a policy in place or something which will guide city staff to try to fairly compensate, in your view as members of council, fairly compensate those people who have been disadvantaged. What I'm suggesting, Your Worship, is that we will bring back a report in the next, I'm going to say 30 days. To the next council meeting, it would be probably the end of July. Is that reasonable? I think that's reasonable. We know what the issues are. And I think we can identify it. We can bring back a report by the end of July so that you can make a determination of, one, refund what you've got, provide credit for what you already know, and provide for future. 30 days? Okay.
Councilor Kenny, you had another question.
Oh, yeah, I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. But I just want to make sure, we got a postulate, I guess, we call it now, from Peter telling us there were 260 frozen services that were fixed in order for the person to get, taxpayer to get water. Of the 260, you're telling me 175 were because of the cities? They were on the city side, is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Kenny, that's correct.
Okay, so then it says here that there were approximately 80 properties that were on the private side, and some of those individuals let their water run, because I got calls from those people, and because their water bill went up anywhere between, well, just like mine, anywhere between 90 and 100 bucks. Two of them I said, just pay your normal water bill until we get this straightened out. I don't want those individuals to be now dinged an interest charge. Because we haven't even straightened this out ourselves as to where we want to go with this. And I'm concerned that we're not taking the taxpayer into consideration. Yes, I understand about all the work that has to be done. But you also have to remember that they're a taxpayer. We all have them. We're elected by them. We're elected by them to try to make decisions that help them. So not only do we have a problem with people who let their water run, we've had complaints from people who didn't have any service. Well, it says right in your report that you sent us, anywhere between, some of them were 17, some of them were 20 days. Those individuals need to be, in my opinion, have some kind of compensation. So I want, if that report is coming back to us, I want that addressed, is how they're going to be compensated. I think it's important that we do that. That's just me.
Your Worship, what we will provide in here is, and I'm going to say right now to Finance, we will put a stay on charging people interest in these circumstances, not the whole city. But where we identify that there's a problem, we will put a stay on the interest charge to try to resolve this because it is an outstanding issue. In the report that comes back, we will speak to how those people can be credited for the lack of service. And if council wants to approve the policy, it gets implemented. That's all there is to it. But we'll bring it all back to you in numbers and the impact on today's rates for the future so that you clearly know and understand what you're going to do. And if you decide to proceed with that, staff are first off the block to make sure that's what they do. We're going to do that. But we will address the interest, we will address the cost, we will address the potential cost in rates and how that could be handled in the future.
Thank you.
So it doesn't end up as a bad public relations issue to start with, but also a financial burden on people who believe that they were unjustly treated.
Thank you, Councillor Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As part of that report, I think I know that there was a lack of clarity in how this was going to get handled, because like people that came to me, and I live out in the sticks, I don't have a water bill, but what I understood was if people were told after their services was restored, they needed to leave their water running to prevent an additional freeze up, that somehow their water bill was going to be mitigated. And it wasn't clear, it was never clear to me at any point in time that private or city side freezing was going to be some determinant factor on whether or not your water bill got mitigated. So that clarity was definitely lacking. Maybe I was the only councillor who didn't understand, you know, maybe I was, I don't think I was, but I suppose that's possible. When we relay information to a taxpayer, and then you come to find out like weeks later, and these really big water bills that kind of hit people right between the eyes, you know, and then on top of that it goes, oh well, you know, you were the private side, so to you, and you're on the city side, woohoo, you know, you're covered, right? That to me is hugely problematic, and we have to address that as well, because I think that lack of clarity played into huge confusion, and now those folks there's folks out there getting dinged that's not fair in my book. So if that could be addressed as well, I'd appreciate that, Mr. Mayor, Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Councillor Butters. Councillor Doucette.
I can appreciate the fact that people are getting dinged, because I have some in my ward, I'm sure, that are getting dinged. Okay? I can appreciate the fact that individuals, because I'm one of the ones that got dinged. Okay, I'll be honest with you, in that I had to have something fixed. The city came out. I paid the almost $400 because it was on a holiday and they had to come out and fix something. So that's fine. I have no problems with that. One of the things we have to be careful with here, you're talking about the 260 that got dinged. What about the 6,400 and something that are also going to get dinged now? Because you have to understand, our service is non-profit. We put everything back into the system. That means they will now be paying for the 260. Is that fair to them? And think carefully about that. Okay, I understand where they're coming from, but this is not a regular utility where we make profit and we can come back on some profit to make it up. Someone's got to pay it, and the other citizens are going to have to pay for it here. Think about it carefully. So I think that needs to be addressed in this report in some way, shape, or form, because that is also an issue. And then we go back to the fixed costs. There's no way that we can give back money for fixed costs. It's as simple as that. Fixed costs mean exactly that, and if you have an empty lot that has a service that comes to the line, they pay fixed costs. Whether they take water or not doesn't matter. They pay fixed costs. The fixed costs cannot be touched in any way, shape, or form. But that's a suggestion that has also been thrown out. Okay? So I have concerns about saying we're going to compensate somebody. How are we going to compensate them? That means the 6,000 something other people are going to be compensating them, or 5,000, whatever the services we have. So we have to think about that as well. Be careful.
Thank you, Councillor Doucette. Councillor Bodner and Councillor Demery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can we, in that report also, can we get an individual listing of what the 100 and some people that were charged the extra money, to get an idea what they are? Councillor Kenny mentioned it was $100 on her bill. I also want to see what it would have cost to call a plumber out. I think the $100 sounds pretty damn cheap. You know, I'm expecting a plumber would be 5 times that, or a lot more than that, maybe even 10 times that. So the fact that some people were able to maybe stop the freezing by letting their water run, I think they got off pretty cheap. And if somebody tapped into their neighbor's water through the goodness of their neighbor, and they haven't paid the neighbor for that water, well, shame on them. And I'd like to also see in that report, can we take that and put it on the person that didn't pay his water bill? No, really, I mean, or post their name on the website. The chances of the neighbor letting them tap into the water next winter, I would assume, is slim and none. So let's see how we could fix that part of it while we're at it. Thank you.
Thank you for comments, Councillor Bonner. Councillor Demery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was very careful to share all information that I got from Ron Hansen and from anybody at City Hall about the frozen services during the time of the freezing. I put it out on Facebook on a daily basis. I would take Ron's report that he sent to all of us councillors and put it out there. And I very clearly put in those comments that a good thing for people to do to avoid freezing would be to run their water. A pencil stream of water of one faucet in your house would do the job, and that was, as Ron had said. And he said that it would likely cost them $30 to $50. Well, clearly it's going to cost a little more. I haven't seen my water bill yet, but I didn't freeze. That's what really matters. But on a daily basis, I would post this on Facebook and put it out to everybody that I did know about how to avoid. But I also very clearly put in there that if you do have frozen services and it is determined to be on the city side, that you will be advised by city staff to run your water. So please do take that advice when it comes, is what I put on there. Never did I ever mention compensation, and no one ever asked for it. So this is coming now, but I didn't run into it at the time, and I just want to make sure that everybody understood that. At the time, people did understand that these are problems that we were facing, and I would echo Councillor Doucette's comments, though. We need to be very careful about this because someone has to pay for it, and if you want to spread it over the entire city of Port Colborne, well, that's one thing, but some of us paid already by our extra water bills because we ran our water.
Thank you, Councillor Desmarais. Councillor Main.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Lee. Is the rate on vacant property, the fixed rate, exactly the same as if it was occupied or there was a house on the lot? Or is it a different rate?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor May. It's my understanding that the fixed rate is constant across the board, no matter what the property is, unless it's commercial versus residential.
Okay, regardless if it's got a house on it or not. Okay, thank you.
There being no further comments, I would perhaps suggest that this is a complex issue. We've all heard from members of the public their concerns. I think that I might entertain a motion to refer the recommendation back to staff for a further report. Mr. Lee, you said it would take roughly a month, you thought?
Through you, Mr. Mayor,
I want to refer to a certain date. Go ahead.
To do that actual report, it's not impossible. We'd had done, staff has had numerous meetings, moratoriums, if you would, on this issue. We have another meeting planned on the 24th where we've actually talked to all members of staff that were handling this particular incident, from the people in the field, what their reactions were, what they found to be issues or communications issues, to the people in City Hall that were taking the calls. And we've had all of those inputs from all of those staff members. And we've come up with a so-called draft recommendation of things that we were wishing to address in the new policy. All of those things would be separate, and that policy would have to come out after, because that's going to take some deliberation and talk amongst other individuals. But the actual dollars or cents, I don't think that should be an issue.
Mr. Howell.
If I may suggest, Your Worship, because it is, as you said, it is complex. We want to make sure we don't miss anything, but I also want to make sure that we're not rushed. Can we suggest this comes back to council the first regular meeting in August? It gives us a month and a half to get the report prepared. It will speak to the post-mortem that was had in respect of the hundreds or the tens that were frozen, as well as we'll incorporate a provision in respect of the capital that hasn't gone through this review yet, that needs to be done to try to offset and cover all of the concerns that we've heard tonight.
Thank you. I would like to entertain a motion to refer the recommendation back to staff for a further report to be delivered by the first regular meeting in August. Would someone care to make that motion? Councillor Doucette, seconded by Councillor Bodner. Any questions, discussion? Councillor Doucette?
Okay. I'm more than willing to put that motion on the floor, but before I put that motion on the floor...
You've already done that, Councillor Doucette.
Yes, okay, that's done. What I do want to talk about is the fact that we had requested some kind of a snowstorm committee, emergency committee. Is that going on? Is that happening or not happening? Because we haven't heard anything. Because some of that can be addressed, some of those concerns may be addressed in that. So I was just wondering, that's all. It's just, since we're talking about frozen pipes.
I appreciate your comments or concerns, but we don't want to muddy the waters. I think we should keep those two separate and distinct. But Councillor Desmarais, you have a comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Winter Activities Committee has met once. Councillor Main and I have met, but we will be meeting again in September. The frozen water issue would probably come in at the end of that, and we take the information from the staff committee that is going on. So there's kind of two separate entities.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure everyone was addressed.
Any further comments or questions? If not, I'd call for the question. All those in favor of that motion? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Are there any other notices of motion to be addressed this evening by members of council? There being none, I would call for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Butter, seconded by Councillor Kenny. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. That concludes the meeting. Can we move on now to a regular meeting of council? We have our agenda, calling the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, we have an addendum item to be added, number 15. Yes? You concur?
Standing up. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, there is one addendum item this evening, the memorandum from the Director of Community and Corporate Services concerning frozen water services.
Thank you. I have a motion to confirm the agenda. Moved by Councillor Desmarais, seconded by Councillor Main. Any comments or questions? Call for the vote. All those in favor? Any disclosures of interest? Councillor Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would declare a conflict on item number 9, as I'm a member of the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 56, so I won't be voting on that one.
Thank you. Any other conflicts? There being none. Move on to adoption of minutes, the 19th meeting of regular council of June 8th, 2015. A chance to review those. Motion to accept. Councillor Kenny, second by Councillor Main. Any comments or questions? Being none, call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. Now, we have to again determine determination of council items requiring separate discussion. Councillor Doucette?
Number 9 for Councillor Butters' conflict.
Thank you. Any others? Item number 1, do we have to hold that? And there just being one item? Okay. Call for adoption of council items not requiring separate discussion. Moved by Councillor Doucette, seconded by Councillor Bodnar. Any questions or comments? There being none, call for the vote. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, let's deal with item number 9. Councillor Doucette.
That the Council of the Corporation of the City of Port Colborne does not object to the application for a temporary license extension to an existing license held by the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 56, located at 67 Clarence Street, Port Colborne, for Canal Days events starting Friday, July 31st, 2015 until Monday, August 3rd, 2015, as outlined in the correspondence dated May 29, 2015, and that the request for a noise bylaw exemption be referred to the Bylaw Enforcement Division for response.
Is there a seconder for that recommendation? Councillor Main? Any comments or discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. Are there any proclamations, Madam Clerk? None this evening. Are there any minutes of boards, commissions, and committees? We have the minutes of the Port Colborne Transit Advisory Committee meeting of January 28th, minutes of the Port Colborne Historical and Marine Museum Board meeting of April 27th, 2015, minutes of the Heritage Port Colborne Committee meeting of April 8th, 2015, and the minutes of the Flavors Advisory Committee meeting of May 20th, 2015. It's council's pleasure to deal with these minutes en bloc. Would someone make the motion to adopt those minutes or accept those minutes? Madam Councillor Butters, seconded by Councillor Kenny. Any comments or discussion? There being none, call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. Are there any notices of motion? Being none, introduction and consideration and passage of bylaws. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, that the following bylaws be read 3 times and finally passed. Bylaw 62507615 being a bylaw to govern the proceedings of committee and council meetings and to repeal bylaw 431415002 and amendments thereto. Bylaw 62517715 being a bylaw to temporarily close a section of West Street to vehicular traffic July 1st, 2015 for the purposes of the Canada Day fireworks display. Bylaw 62527815 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 62315715 being a bylaw to set and levy the rates of taxation for 2015. Bylaw 62537915 being a bylaw to authorize entering into a contract agreement with Anthony's Excavating regarding tender 2015-14 annual ditch cleaning for 2015 and 2016. Bylaw 62548015 being a bylaw to authorize entering into an industrial tax increment grant agreement respecting 1 to 3 Lake Road. Bylaw 62558115 being a bylaw to authorize entering into an authorized requester agreement with the Ministry of Transportation for the purposes of the administrative monetary penalty system. And finally, bylaw 62568215 being a bylaw to authorize entering into an authorized requester agreement with the Ministry of Transportation for the purposes of bylaw enforcement.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. It's a pleasure of council to deal with these bylaws on block. Call for the question. Well, first of all, are there any questions or concerns? There being none, call for the question. All those in favor? No. We're mover and a seconder. Moving along too quickly here. Moved by Councillor Dant, seconded by Councillor Keddy. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Confirmatory bylaw, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, that the following bylaw be read 3 times and finally passed. Bylaw 625783. 15 being a bylaw to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Port Colborne at its regular meeting of June 22nd, 2015.
A mover and a seconder for the confirmatory bylaw, moved by Councillor Doucette, seconded by Councillor Butters. Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Now I would like to entertain a motion to go into closed session. Councillor Kenny, second by Councillor Desmarais.
Can you read that in the record?
Pardon me?
You need to read that in the record. Or have the clerk read it.
Madam Clerk, can you just read that into the record?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That council do now proceed into closed session in order to address the following matters. Minutes of the closed session portion of the May 25th, 2015 council meeting and Community and Corporate Services Clerks Division Report 2015-12, subject appointments to boards and committees concerning the Accessibility Advisory Committee pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, subsection 239(2)B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees.
We have a motioner and a seconder, and I'll call for the question. There was Councillor Doucette and Councillor Kenny, I believe, or Councillor Butters. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Now let's retire to address the issues in closed session.
Boy, was that a